falar sobre consumismo. As pessoas compram cada vez mais os produtos e trocam um pequeno período. A mídia influencia as pessoas a comprarem cada vez mais para que sejam mais felizes, já que as pessoas são aquilo que elas compram. As pessoas já não usam ele, pois ele estragou. Isso ocorre por causa da obsolescência programada. Os produtos são feitos para se tornarem inutilizáveis em um curto período de tempo, e o desgaste desses produtos gera cada vez mais lixo. Dessa forma, ao passo que as empresas procuram aumentar seus lucros com a obsolescência programada, os recursos da natureza são os mais explorados e há a maior produção de descarte, com a desculpa de que as pessoas serão mais felizes após comprar, como mostra a nossa corrente de compra.
Get us to jump on board this program so enthusiastically. Well, two of their most effective strategies are planned obsolescence and perceived obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is another word for designed for the dump. It means they actually make stuff to be useless as quickly as possible, so we'll chuck it and buy a new one. It's obvious with things like plastic bags and coffee cups, but now it's even big stuff. Mops, DVDs, cameras, barbecues even, everything. Even computers. Have you noticed that when you buy a computer now, the technology is changing so fast that in just a couple of years, it's actually an impediment to communication? I was curious about this, so I opened up a big desktop computer to see what was inside. And I found out that the piece that changes each year is just a tiny little piece in the corner. But you can't just change that one piece because each new version is a different shape. So you gotta chuck the whole thing and buy a new one. So I was reading industrial design journals from the 1950s when planned obsolescence was really catching on. These designers are so open about it. They actually discuss how fast can they make stuff break that still leaves the consumer having enough faith in the product to go out and buy another one. It was so intentional. But stuff cannot break fast enough to keep this arrow afloat. So there's also perceived obsolescence. Now, perceived obsolescence convinces us to throw away stuff that is still perfectly useful. How do they do that? Well, they change the way the stuff looks. So if you bought your stuff a couple of years ago, everyone can tell that you haven't contributed to this arrow recently. And since the way we demonstrate our value is contributing to this arrow, it can be embarrassing. Like, I've had the same fat white computer monitor on my desk for 5 years. My coworker just got a new computer. She has a flat, shiny, sleek monitor. It matches her computer, it matches her phone, even her pen stand. She looks like she's driving in Spaceship Central, and I look like I've got a washing machine on my desk. Fashion is another prime example of this. Have you ever wondered why women's shoe heels go from fat one year to skinny the next to fat to skinny? It's not because there's some debate about which heel structure is the most healthy for women's feet. It's because wearing fat heels in a skinny heel year shows everybody that you haven't contributed to that arrow as recently, so you're not as valuable as that person in skinny heels next to you, or more likely in some ad. It's to keep us buying new shoes. Advertisements and media in general plays a big role in this. Each of us in the U.S. is targeted with over 3,000 advertisements a day. We see more advertisements in 1 year than people 50 years ago saw in a lifetime. And if you think about it, what's the point of an ad except to make us unhappy with what we have? So 3,000 times a day, we're told our hair is wrong, our skin is wrong, our clothes are wrong, our furniture is wrong, our car is wrong, we are wrong, but it can all be made right if we just go shopping. Media also helps by hiding all of this and all of this. So the only part of the materials economy we see is the shopping. The extraction, production, and disposal all happens outside of our field of vision. So in the U.S., we have more stuff than ever before, but polls show that our national happiness is actually declining. Our national happiness peaked in the 1950s, the same time that this consumption mania exploded. Interesting coincidence. I think I know why. We have more stuff, but we have less time for the things that really make us happy. Friends, family, leisure time. We're working harder than ever. Some analysts say we have less leisure time than any time since feudal society. And do you know what the two main activities are that we do with the scant leisure time we have? Watch TV and shop. In the U.S., we spend 3 to 4 times as many hours shopping as our counterparts in Europe do. So we're in this ridiculous situation where we go to work, maybe 2 jobs even, and we come home and we're exhausted, so we plop down on our new couch and watch TV, and the commercials tell us you suck, so you gotta go to the mall to buy something to feel better, and then you gotta go to work more to pay for the stuff you just bought, so you come home and you're more tired, so you sit down and you watch more TV, and it tells you to go to the mall again, and we're on this crazy work, watch, spend treadmill, and we could just stop.
Tem que fazer compramos cada vez mais. Eles nos assustam sobre aquilo que consumimos. Eles seduzem-nos a comprar aquilo que eles vendem e nos enganam. Muitas pessoas, ao assistir televisão, confundem aquilo que sabem viver, pois são influenciados por aquilo que assistem. O maior investimento da indústria cultural é o
principalmente para o público infantil. Na atualidade, as crianças têm um enorme poder de compra. Os marqueteiros influenciam as crianças e querem comprar os produtos para que seus pais os comprem.
Na televisão, no computador, nas ruas. São criados produtos de programa e também são criados programas, apenas para que ele gere um comércio, para que as crianças queiram comprar os calçados, brinquedos, roupa, as comidas desse programa.
Tudo isso trouxe muitos problemas para o público infantil. As crianças tornaram-se menos saudáveis e mais sedentárias. Estão menos propensas a brincar com criatividade, mais propensas a se divertirem assistindo televisão e a comerem as comidas fora do foco da publicidade, as chamadas junk food, de comidas que não são saudáveis.
Além disso, as crianças se tornam mais precoces. Meninos e meninas recebem a mensagem de que deveriam se tornar adultos mais cedo.
Para falar mais sobre o assunto, veremos a entrevista que fizemos com 3 especialistas
das de hoje. São Susan Lin, diretora de uma campanha pela infância livre de publicidade, Nala Ard, diretora e fundadora do projeto The Motherhood. Agora iremos com a nossa entrevistadora
o marketing para as crianças.
This generation of children is marketed to as never before. Kids are being marketed to through brand licensing, through product placement, marketing in schools, through stealth marketing, through viral marketing. There's DVDs, there's video games, there's the internet, there are iPods, there are cell phones. There are so many more ways of reaching children so that there's a brand in front of a child's face every moment of every day.
Preocupa nessa publicidade.
Wanting to convince our children that life is about buying, life is about getting.
Can I help you?
Yeah, here to see this?
Go ahead.
So the philosophy becomes cradle to grave. Let's get to them early. Let's get to them often. Let's get to them as many places as we can get them.
Do you have a business card?
Sure.
Not just to sell them products and services, but to turn them into lifelong consumers.
I'll see you in about 20 years.
Quanto adultos, estão sendo influenciados por uma mídia violenta, por uma mídia que procura modificar valores, colocar o segredo para a felicidade nos mais novos produtos, tornarem as pessoas consumistas, acabarem com os recursos naturais, colocarem o lixo no mundo até não se ter espaço mais para ele, apenas para obter lucro. Terminamos o programa de hoje com a contribuição dos correspondentes sobre o mundo atual e como podemos mudar.
All along the way, we're bumping up against limits. From changing climate to declining happiness, it's just not working. But the good thing about such an all-pervasive problem is there are so many points of intervention. There are people working here on saving forests, here on clean production, labor rights, fair trade, conscious consuming, blocking landfills and incinerators, and very importantly, taking back our government, so that it really is by the people, for the people. All of this work is critically important. But things really start moving when we see the connections, when we see the big picture. When people all along this system get united, we can reclaim and transform this whole linear system into something new, a system that doesn't waste resources or people. You see, what we really need to chuck is that old school throwaway mindset. There's a new school of thinking about this stuff, and it's based on sustainability and equity. Things like green chemistry, zero waste, closed loop production, renewable energy, local living economies. It's already started. Some say it's unrealistic, too idealistic that it can't happen. I say the ones who are unrealistic are those who think that we can continue with the old way. They're dreaming. Remember, that old way didn't just happen. It wasn't like gravity that we just have to live with. People created it, and we're people too. So let's create something new.